Hey you guys, happy Wednesday. Today is I Wonder Why Wednesday, so generally I'm gonna have just an interesting topic, usually science related. But today is gonna be a little bit different. So I'm just gonna read the next two chapters of Because of Winn-Dixie, which is chapters 15 and 16. And then I'm gonna put the link to another YouTube channel that I found in the comments of this video. So once you watch my video, then you can go to the comments and click on it and you'll be sent to this other YouTube channel that I just discovered today, and you guys have to check it out. So your I Wonder Why Wednesday is I wonder what on earth that is, right? Okay. And let me know how you guys like it because I've been watching the videos today. So here we go, chapter 15. Yesterday we got a little bit serious, right? We learned a little bit more about Gloria Dump, and she kind of just talked about like her struggles that she's had in her life and how you can't judge people based on mistakes, right? Everybody makes mistakes. We're all gonna make mistakes, but we can be better people today than we were yesterday, right? So we're gonna pick up chapter 15. Here we go. The Herman W. Block Memorial Library's air conditioning unit didn't work very good, and there was only one fan. And from the minute me and Winn-Dixie got in the library, he hogged it all. He lay right in front of it and wagged his tail and let it blow his fur all around. Some of his fur was pretty loose and blew right off of him like a dandelion puff. I worry about him hogging the fan, and I worried about the fan blowing him bald, but Miss Franny said not to worry about either thing, that Winn-Dixie could hog the fan if he wanted, and she had never in her life seen a dog made bald by a fan. Me neither. Sometimes when Miss Franny was telling a story, she would have a fit. They were small fits, and they didn't last long, but what happened was she would forget what she was saying. She would just stop and start to shake like a little leaf. And when that happened, Winn-Dixie would get up from the fan and sit right at Miss Franny Block's side. He would sit up tall, protecting her with his ears standing straight up on his head like soldiers. Do you guys have pets at home? I know I see a lot of you on Google Meet that have dogs and other pets too, but I've seen a lot of dogs on Google Meet. Do your dogs ever come up to you like when you're sad? Do they know when something's wrong? That's kind of what she's saying about Winn-Dixie, right? He's trying to comfort Miss Franny. Where was I? And when Miss Franny stopped shaking and started talking again, Winn-Dixie would lick her hand and lie back down in front of the fan. Whenever Miss Franny had one of her fits, it reminded me of Winn-Dixie in a thunderstorm. There were a lot of thunderstorms that summer. And I got real good at holding on to Winn-Dixie whenever they came. I held on to him and comforted him and whispered to him and rocked him, just the same way he tried to comfort Miss Franny when she had her fits. Only I held on to Winn-Dixie for another reason too. I held on to him tight so he wouldn't run away. It all made me think about Gloria Dump. I wondered who comforted her when she heard those bottles knocking together, those ghosts chattering about things she had done wrong. I wanted to comfort Gloria Dump, and I decided that the best way to do that would be to read her a book, read it to her loud enough to keep the ghosts away. And so I asked Miss Franny. I said, Miss Franny, I've got a grown-up friend whose eyes are going on her, and I would like to read her a book out loud. Do you have any suggestions? Suggestions, Miss Franny said. Yes, ma'am, I have suggestions. Of course I have suggestions. How about Gone with the Wind? What's that about? I asked her. Why, said Miss Franny, it's a wonderful story about the Civil War. The Civil War, I said. Do not tell me you've never heard of the Civil War. Miss Franny Block looked like she was going to faint. She waved her hands in front of her face. I know about the Civil War, I told her. That was the war between the South and the North over slavery. Slavery, yes, said Miss Franny. It was also about states' rights and money. It was a terrible war. My great-grandfather fought in that war. He was just a boy. Your great-grandfather? Yes, ma'am. Litmus W. Block. Now, there's a story. Winn-Dixie yawned real big and lay down on his side with a thump and a sigh. I swear he Knew that phrase. Now there's a story. And he knew it meant we weren't going anywhere real soon. Go ahead and tell it to me, Miss Franny, I said. And I sat down cross-legged next to Winn-Dixie. I pushed him and tried to get him to share the fan, but he pretended he was asleep. And he wouldn't move. Have you guys ever done that? Something like that? Maybe your mom's like, hey, come help clean the kitchen. And you guys are like, oh, I'm sleeping. Or Miss Duncan used to do that when my mom would come and wake me up for school. I was not a morning person when I was a kid. So my mom would come in and wake me up for school. And I would just pretend I was sleeping. Or like she would leave the room and I would pretend that I had fallen back asleep even though I didn't really do that. I just, like a hair in my face. I just was pretending because then I thought, maybe if I pretend to be sleeping, she'll forget. Which did happen a couple times. She forgot about me and then we were really, really late to school. Or I think sometimes I even got out of school. But shh, you're not supposed to do that. Anyways, you guys love school because you want to come hang out with Miss Duncan, right? I was all settled in and ready for a good story when the door banged and pinch-faced Amanda Wilkinson came in. Winn-Dixie sat up and stared at her. He tried out a smile on her, but she didn't smile back, and so he lay down again. I'm ready for another book, Amanda said, slamming her book down on Miss Franny's desk. Well, said Miss Franny, maybe you wouldn't mind waiting. I am telling India Opal a story about my great-grandfather. You are, of course, more than welcome to listen. It will be just 1 minute. Amanda sighed a real big dramatic sigh and stared past me. She pretended like she wasn't interested, but she was, I could tell. Come sit over here, said Miss Franny. I'll stand, thank you, said Amanda. Suit yourself, Miss Franny shrugged. Now, where was I? Oh, yes, Litmus W. Block. Chapter 16. Litmus W. Block was just a boy when the firing on Fort Sumter occurred, Miss Franny Block said as she started in on her story. Fort Sumter? I said. It was the firing on Fort Sumter that started the war, said Amanda. Okay, I said. I shrugged. Well, Litmus was 14 years old. He was strong and big, but he was still just a boy. His daddy, Artley W. Block, had already enlisted, and Litmus told his mama that he could not stand by and let the South get beat, and so he went to fight too. Miss Franny looked around the library, and then she whispered, men and boys always want to fight. They are always looking for a reason to go to war. It's the saddest thing. They have this abiding notion that war is fun, and no history lesson will convince them differently. Anyway, Litmus went and enlisted. He lied about his age. Yes, ma'am. Like I said, he was a big boy, and the army took him, and Litmus went off to war just like that. Left behind his mother and his 3 sisters. He went off to be a hero, but soon he found out the truth. Miss Franny closed her eyes and shook her head. What truth? I asked her. Why, that war is terrible, Miss Franny said, with her eyes still closed. I stole a look at her. At Amanda. Her face was pinched up even more than usual. War, said Miss Franny, with her eyes still closed, should be a cuss word. She shook her head and opened her eyes. She pointed at me, and then she pointed at Amanda. You, neither of you, can imagine. No, ma'am, Amanda and me said at exactly the same time. We looked real quick at each other and then back at Miss Franny. You cannot imagine. Litmus was hungry all the time and was covered with a manner of... Oh my goodness, Miss Duncan needs more coffee. And he was covered with all manner of vermin, fleas, and lice. And in the winter, he was so cold, he thought for sure he would freeze to death. And in the summer, why, there's nothing worse than war in the summertime. It stinks so. And the only thing that made Litmus forget that he was hungry and itchy and hot or cold was that he was getting shot at. And he got shot at quite a bit. And he was nothing more than a child. Did he get killed? I asked Miss Franny. Good grief, said Amanda. She rolled her eyes. Now, Opal, Miss Franny said, I wouldn't be standing in this room telling you this story if he was killed. I wouldn't exist. No, ma'am. He had to live. But he was a changed man. Yes, ma'am. A changed man. He walked back home when the war was over. He walked from Virginia all the way back to Georgia. He didn't have a horse. Nobody had a horse except for the Yankees. He walked, and when he got home, there was no one home there. Where was it? I asked her. I didn't care if Amanda thought I was stupid. I wanted to know. Why, Miss Franny shouted so loud. Should I shout? Why? That Winn-Dixie and Amanda Wilkinson and me all jumped. The Yankees burned it. Yes, ma'am, burned it to the ground. Now, I want to pause because Yankees were a group of people from the North, and they were fighting against the people in the South. They were not the baseball team that we hear about all the time, that we've actually learned about this year. We learned about the baseball team, huh? What about his sisters? Amanda asked. She moved around the desk and came and sat on the floor. She looked up at Miss Franny. What happened to them? Dead. Dead of typhoid fever. Oh no, Amanda said in a real soft voice. And his mama? I whispered. Dead too. And his father? Amanda asked. What happened to him? He died on the battlefield. Litmus was an orphan? I asked. Yes, ma'am, said Miss Franny Block. Litmus was an orphan. This is a sad story, I told Miss Franny. It sure is, said Amanda. I was amazed that she was agreeing with me about something. I am not done yet, Miss Franny said. Winn-Dixie started to snore, and I nudged him with my foot to try to make him quit. I wanted to hear the rest of the story. It was important to me to hear how Litmus survived after losing everything he loved. So isn't that crazy? This is Miss Franny Block, the librarian, right? Her great-grandpa went to war, the Civil War, which was a long time ago, before any of us were ever around. And he thought it would be fun, and it ends up being the worst thing in the world, right? It's terrible. War is not a good thing. And he is miserable. And then he comes back home finally after this war is over, and it turns out that everyone who stayed behind passed away, right? His dad was in the war. He died in the battlefield. And then his mom and his sisters got so sick, and they passed away from being really sick. So that's so sad. So we will continue tomorrow, Throwback Thursday. We were going to do a map of Arizona, but we might learn a little bit about the Civil War since that's kind of what we're reading about. I'll think about it. Maybe we'll do both. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. For your fun activity, little tidbit today, go to the link that is underneath this. It's in the comments. I'm going to put it in the comments. And it's a fun YouTube channel. Let me just say that Miss Duncan is not the only JJ teacher with a YouTube channel. That's your little hint. All right. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.